One day I got the itch to go do some urban exploring. I looked up where to go, and I found an asylum that was about an hour away. I packed some snacks and my family, and we were on our way. The drive there was a treat in itself, very gorgeous scenery. We drove by a super cute small town, stopped at a market to use the restroom and buy some snacks. We drove the last 20 minutes into the property. We parked the car and started hiking into the buildings. The structures were very deteriorated and almost seemed dangerous to walk through, but we did anyway. It was a farm that belonged to the asylum, and there were stables and different little shops. After about an hour of walking around and taking it all in, we started smelling cigarette smoke. We started looking around because it wasn't any of us smoking. We couldn't see anyone smoking. We walked around every building and peeked into each one, and we couldn't see anyone other than us. I looked down to where we had parked, and there was no other cars either. We shrugged it off and took the hint that it was time to go. As we gathered and began walking back towards the car, we all heard some echoing giggling from one of the buildings. I quickly looked at everyone, just to make sure my family was in fact complete, and sure enough, we were all standing together. We all started walking towards the building we heard the giggling coming from, but we'd all have heard it come from different directions. We were enjoying the moment and also freaking out when my husband started pointing at one of the buildings. I looked, and there was a small boy peeking out, about 3 or 4 years old. He didn't look at either of us, but was looking straight ahead, behind us. The boy then disappeared into the building. I quickly went to the doorway he was standing at, and I smelled the cigarette smoke as if someone had blown it into my face. I didn't see the boy anymore, or anyone else in the shop. I turned around, walked out, and told everyone that it was time to leave. We all hiked down to the car and just couldn't believe what we'd seen. When I was little, my older cousin sent me a bag filled with hand-me-down clothes and a few toys. In the mix, there was a Barney plush that would talk and sing. I kept pressing his hands, his feet, his belly, but the plush wouldn't budge. I turned it around, opened up his back, and brought out the battery compartment. I opened it up and saw it was missing batteries. I was disappointed and put the doll back together and placed it on top of my dresser. I went about my day and forgot about Barney. It was bedtime and I laid down, and as I was dozing off, I heard a familiar voice saying, "Please give me a hug." I opened my eyes and turned to look at the Barney doll I had dissected earlier that day. I was looking at it, and all of a sudden it says, "I love you." I sat up thinking how nice it was that someone had put batteries in it at some point in the day. I went to grab the plush, and again it said, "Please give me a hug." I laid back down and fell asleep holding the purple dinosaur. The next morning, I woke up and the purple plush was on the floor beneath my bed. I must have pushed it off the bed while I was asleep. I bent down to grab it, and I pressed it to hear it speak. It didn't say anything. I pressed it again, harder this time, and again it stared at me in silence. I turned the back towards me, and brought out the battery pack, and when I opened it, it was empty. I went out to the living room and found my dad drinking coffee and watching TV. I asked him if he had put batteries in the toy, and he said no. I ran to my parents' room and my mom was still in bed, but waking up. I asked her if she had put batteries in the plush for me, and she also said no. I told her I had heard it speaking at night, while I was holding back tears. She took out the battery pack and opened it. She turned to tell me that we didn't have those type of batteries at home at all, but that she'd buy some the next time she went out shopping. I started crying because I was terrified and now scared of Barney. I told her time and time again I'd heard it talking at night. A few days went by before my mom got any batteries for my toy. By then, I had heard it talking at all times of night and day. I tried messing up the battery pack so it would stop, and it kept talking and saying more and more phrases. When my mom finally got around to putting batteries into the toy, the plush wouldn't work, even with batteries. I was convinced it was possessed, and I ran outside with it and threw it in the garbage bin. When I was little, I lived in a small studio. There was a doorway between the kitchen and bedroom, and it only a long silk-like curtain for privacy. The silk door was tied up and remained open during the day, but at night it would hang down. My bed faced directly to the doorway, and sometimes I would feel a strange presence behind the silk sheet. Sometimes I'd watch it move suddenly, as if there was a wind draft. Sometimes I would get up to check in the kitchen to see if there was a window open that caused this, but there wasn't. I would go back to bed and fall asleep. One day, while the room was pitch black, I saw the curtain move softly, and looked up. I heard a voice whispering my name, and I don't know why, but I dared to answer. The voice whispered back, "Come here." I immediately hid under my blankets and stayed there shaking and ignoring whoever was calling me. Back in high school, my friends and I got our hands on a recorder. One night we were hanging out and started messing with the recorder. We were pretending to be ghost hunters, and we had a whole skit going. When we played the tape again, we started hearing other voices, and the voices were getting angrier and louder as the tape kept playing. We all got so freaked out that we burned the recorder and tape that same night.